Hi, my name is Victor de Lorenzo, and I am the director of a practical course that is taking place in the facilities of the EMBL sponsored by EMBO on synthetic biology, and that is the basis of the various videos that you are going to see in this series. As this course is about synthetic biology, it is fair to start by the question, what is synthetic biology and how it relates to other areas of biology or science in general? Well, the term synthetic biology has been around for a while, and as early as in 1912, someone proposed the term to describe a number of interesting phenomena, perhaps during that time at a different meaning. But keep also in mind that synthesis is the counterpart of analysis, and in science we have these two main tools to address reality and to decipher the complexity that we find in all types of natural phenomena. To the point that there's a famous quotation by Richard Feynman saying that what I cannot create, I do not understand, meaning by that creating something is the ultimate proof of understanding. Well, what all this has to do with biology? Today, biology has two pillars, or two main pillars. One of them is evolutionary theory, as it was posed by Darwin time ago, and then refined and materialized through molecular biology, modern genetics, and all the rest of it. And the other big pillar is what is called the central dogma of molecular biology, that DNA contains all the information that is transmitted faithfully all the way to proteins and then to metabolism. But let us keep in mind that knowing the origin of things, and this is what evolutionary theory is about, may not tell you all the details on how that very same thing works. So when we find an object, we can raise the question of where the object comes from, and this is the business of evolutionary biology. But I insist that in many cases that is not sufficient to understand how biological objects work. So why is that? Well, there are various approaches to answer this question. The one that is the tenet in contemporary biology is this concept of tinkering, as it was proposed by François Jacob time ago. And under this frame, the idea is that biological systems come to work because they take advantage of any property, of any material, of anything that is at hand to build a new function. By that token, what happens is that in every stage of evolution, every novelty that appears to fulfill a given purpose might remain as such or might be eventually co-opted to do something completely different. So sometimes in biology, biologists face the problem that we observe a complex phenomenon going on, and when we try to determine how that phenomenon mechanistically works, then we find sometimes an inexplicable complexity. And in many cases, this is the result of evolution, because evolution has picked up functions, materials here and there, and eventually something useful happens that can be selected for the next stage in the process. This is very well graphically represented by the cartoons by Rube Goldberg, and in this case, what you have here is a situation that I find interesting, and is the necessity or the function to wake up a gentleman in a bed is brought about because of the occurrence of a number of successive actions that start with the sun rising in a window, and then after a while and a number of events, then the gentleman is woken up. So, sometimes in nature, we find the same situation. We find all these events that we observe them, we may make a real sense on why they came about, but in reality, in many cases, if not in most cases, we don't really understand why they work as they work, and we even wonder whether they could work in a different way. The reason for that is this phenomenon in evolutionary biology that is called exaptation, and this is the concept that one biological function that is materialized through some material entity that is, say, invented by evolution may be born with a given function and then eventually maybe recycled into something very, very different. The typical example are the feathers in evolution. So they were, say, invented to provide a thermal insulation to dinosaurs, but the success of feathers was not that one, but very different one to provide a mechanism for a bird flying. So you can see in this case, we have multiple examples in biology, from molecular biology to zoology and all the rest of it, that is a components of a biological system that have, in one evolutionary stage, one specific function might have it completely different. So that puts a big barrier on using evolutionary approaches to understand how things work. we can understand where they come from, but how do they work? Well, this is the moment where synthetic biology really makes its entry in biology. And what synthetic biology proposes is to look at life systems using engineering as a metaphor or as an interpretative frame to understand, make sense, and eventually rebuild biological systems. So the big novelty in synthetic biology is that the whole emphasis of the field is understanding and approaching the compositional and relational logic of biological systems and not so much being concerned about their evolutionary origin. And this is a different perspective of what has been the traditional biology thus far. So under this new umbrella, one can approach biological complexity from the perspective of dividing the system in various hierarchical levels. We have the parts, that is the most basic level, then parts will make devices will make systems in the frame of the abstraction hierarchy that is so common in different types of engineering. And then under that umbrella, under that interpretative frame, then we can replace altogether or nearly altogether the central dogma of molecular biology, DNA, RNA, proteins, by an alternative or another tenet, that is the parts make devices and devices make systems, perhaps with this intermediate stage of modules. So synthetic biology has not appeared out of the blue. It is rooted in the history of biology and molecular biology, but also it has acquired, it has adopted other sources of knowledge and elements and concepts and tools from other disciplines, such as engineering, obviously, computing, modeling, but also there's a big component about origin of life and artificial life, because there is this issue on simplifying biological systems to the point that they can simply work. And this is something that has a great connection with those that have been interested in the origin of life. So this is a tree with various branches, various roots, and you will have the opportunity to witness various approaches to the same question through the various videos that you are going to see in this series. So what is the advantage of adopting these engineering metaphors? Well, the advantage is that by adopting them, we can see in biological systems things that have never seen before. So if you show bacteria to people with different engineering backgrounds, they may see very, very different things. A standard biology will see a bacterium, a body with cells, a membrane, outer membrane, and membrane. Well, if you show this to an electric engineer, what he or she may see instead is a complex circuit with various components that are connected in a very particular way, and because of this connectivity, they develop a new function. And well, by the same token, that in radios you have transistors, and you have connectors, and you have speakers, and so one can see a biological say systems, for instance, bacteria, also as a collection of parts that are connected through a specific, say, a plan and a specific blueprint that will allow you to not only to understand how the plan is made, but also to rewire it to acquire a new functionality. But if you show the same bacteria to a computer scientist, then they may see in the very same object something different, like a little computational device that is able to take inputs and convert them into outputs. And this metaphor, this interpretative frame, has been very useful in the hands of people such as Antoine Danchennes to use that to propose new languages, new methodologies, a new agenda in synthetic biology by benefiting from this new perspective in looking at things. But if you show the same cells to a chemical engineer, what we will see is a fantastic and super complex and very small chemical factory with all the pipes, all the fluxes, all the chemicals, all the transformations. So by adopting, as you see, all these, let's say, metaphors and these frames, we can really extract a lot of what is going on in biological systems, not only from the point of view of understanding, but also from the type of point of doing. And this is perhaps one of the most exciting challenges that we face in the field. To do that, one has to start with a biological system already like it is, decompose that into parts, and in many cases, we are helped by the modern technology of omics, proteomics, genomics, and all the rest of it. And then once we have the parts, we can produce a simplified model that will help us to understand how it is. But in the case of synthetic biology, what is the big excitement is the possibility of using these very same parts and do objects that are different and do different things. And this is precisely what we are now and what attracts the attention of the public and also of the, say, leaders of opinion and the leaders of our society, because they see, as we see that ourselves, a tremendous power in the development of synthetic bio in the future. And it comes as no surprise that this type of technologies have been picked as one of the most promising and transformative technologies of the future, as you see in this report, and you can see also in many other reports of the like. Obviously, these developments are not devoid of social consequences, and as is the case also in many other stages in history where science has made a big breakthrough with transformative potential. For instance, in this picture, you have the invention of anesthetics. Then it is logical, it is even expected that society will react to it in various ways and will raise interesting questions. For instance, what is the science behind it? It is safe, what are the risks, how intellectual property, who are benefits, are we playing something wrong that we should be avoided? Well, all these matters are on top of the table, have a connection to synthetic biology, and they are entirely legitimate debates that we have to re-implement the immense potential that we have in this field. So I just want to finish this little introduction to the course, telling you that one of the magnets of synthetic biology is really to attract to the field to some of the most creative minds of our time. I have no misgiving to say that if Leonardo would live today, he would be a synthetic biology. Thank you.